それではですね、ここからニールセンをお招きしたいと思います。最初のセッションタイトルをご紹介します。 UX のこれまで、現在、そしてこれから、UX Past, Present, Future。 ご登壇いただくのは UX タイガースのヤコブ・ニールセンさんです。会場でですね伺う方はですね、同時通訳を、お手元のレシーバーとしてご利用いただければと思います。So, hello, Jacob.
Hello.
Hey, hello, great, great. So, are you ready? So, we are here. Great. Oh, but I cannot see your face yet. All right. Hello. Jacob, here we have 400 actual attendee and also the 5,200 online fan of you.
That is impressive. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I can't wait to listen to your presentation. So please have your presentation from here.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching this this morning, I guess, in Japan. And I'm very excited to be speaking in Tokyo, because I've always been a really big fan of Japan. And actually, I should tell you that Tokyo in particular, that is where I got my introduction to artificial intelligence, because I went to the 5th Generation Computer Systems Conference in Tokyo in 1984, so more than 40 years ago, and also another conference they had in 1988. So that was a very pioneering artificial intelligence project, a 5th generation computer project in Japan. And so that was very exciting to me, and I got very engaged in this. But then there were many years where there was not so much progress in AI, and so I focused more on other things. But now here, the last few years, this has come back again. So actually, Japan gets the credit for getting me introduced to this field, and I always love being in Tokyo in particular. So I'm grateful to have so many people listening here. So since this conference is called the UI UX Camp, I thought that one thing I should start by talking about is the difference between UI and UX, so user interface and user experience. So user interface is, of course, what you see on the screen. And so ever since the Macintosh was introduced in 1984, so again, more than 40 years ago, user interfaces have mainly been the graphical user interface or the GUI. And so what we're designing when we're designing a user interface is mostly icons and buttons and menus and boxes where you can type, and the error messages if you type something wrong. All the text that is on the screen is also part of the user interface. So all of those things are things that we are designing. Now, I should say that even though most user interfaces are graphical user interfaces, both the personal computers and the PC and mobile phones and websites and everything, they're mostly graphical user interfaces. But a user interface does not have to be graphical. It can just as well be gestural. So how you move, maybe I do like this, I squeeze something, that can be part of a user interface, that can be a command. Or it can also be verbal, a spoken user interface. You know, there's a lot of those now, particularly again with AI, that's improving the ability to do speech recognition and voice synthesis. So I can speak my command and the computer can respond back, or it can also play different sounds that can be part of a user interface as well. So designing those sounds, how it beeps, is it pleasant, unpleasant? That's also user interface design. So there's a lot of elements in user interface design. On the other hand, the user experience, or the UX, that is, as the name says, the experience of the individual user. And it's everything the user encounters. And a lot of that is the user interface. But it's also other things. It can be even the name of the product, or the marketing or advertising of the product, because they set the expectations for how the interaction will be, and therefore that changes the interpretation. So the user experience is in many ways in the head of the user, and in some sense we are not really designing the user experience, even though that's usually the word used, or the term used is user experience design, but we're designing the components that are then for the user, put together to form that experience. And the user experience has all these components to it. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, easy, difficult? The usability, can we learn it? Or is it too difficult for us? And people just leave because nobody wants to spend time with a difficult computer. So those are all aspects of user experience, quality attributes. And so when I explain it like this, many people will then say, oh, user experience is like more important and user interface is less important. But that's the wrong conclusion, because user experience lives through user interface to a very great extent. As I said, there are other components, but most of the user experience is created by the user interface. So user interface design is super important for user experience. And both things are important things to understand. Designing what goes on the screen or voice messages, and understanding how it's interpreted and met and felt by the users, and can they understand it or not. You cannot say one is more important than the other, because both have to work together, and you don't have one without the other. So I really feel like it's actually very nice that this conference is called the UI UX, because both considerations are very, very important. But one thing I do want to say is that now we are in this artificial intelligence revolution. And with that revolution, more and more of the user interface elements will actually be designed by AI, by artificial intelligence. So this is more, I'm talking about the future, maybe in 5 years, not necessarily exactly today, but very soon in the bigger scheme of things. Very soon, most user interface design will be done by artificial intelligence, because it can design beautiful icons, great color schemes, perfect layout, write the messages, and it can write the messages in 50 different languages, which no human can do. And so it can create a worldwide international user interfaces very easily. So those components that used to take a lot of work, and we have had this phrase called the pixel perfect design, which is that you want to make sure that everything is aligned just exactly right. Well, the AI will just do that automatically for you. And so that's, to me, a great future prospect. Now, some people may worry about this, because if you take your pride in being able to create a beautiful layout or the pixel perfect alignment of things on the screen, then you may say, oh, if the computer does it, what am I going to do? But I think what you have to do as a human, there will be enormous needs for human in the user experience side of things, because the AI will be able to do those layouts. It'll be able to make the pretty icons, all those things, very nicely. But there are also these other aspects. There's the workflow. There's actually, what is the system doing in the first place? User pain points, understanding user needs. Those are things that are still the human responsibility. All the judgment calls. Humans are great at judgment. AI is actually not so good at judgment, unfortunately, but it's great at ideation. If you want to, let's say, have an icon, well, you might as well get 10 icons, because if you had a human, they have to sit and draw it, it would take time and be expensive, but AI just will make them for you very cheaply. So we get a lot of different alternatives, but then we have to have the judgment, which is the better one. And so there's still a very, very big need for humans, even with artificial intelligence, or even in the future, that becomes a very, very important phenomenon. So I want to talk about, again, the past and the present and the future of user experience. And we can really divide this up into 3 ages or eras. And the first one was before artificial intelligence. So until, a year ago or something like that, very recently. And that was about 50 years worth of user experience design, from early work on designing the old-fashioned telephones and mainframe user interfaces, to designing personal computers, websites, and all of that. We've had a long history for 50 years or more of handmade user interface design. So that was how we made the user experience, was through handcrafted design, handmade. And that made it very expensive. But that was the first era, very distinct time of more than 50 years. Then we have the future era, which is the age of AI, where, as I just mentioned, artificial intelligence would do a lot of those design steps for us. So the handcrafted past fades away and the new dawn of AI will arrive, and we will be much more efficient in doing user experience work. So that's the future. Now, I said there were three ages. So we have the past and we have the future. In the middle, we have the transition period. And I think the past was more than 50 years. The future, the age of AI, who knows how long that will be before something else comes along. But I think it will be pretty long as well, I think. So we have the past and we have the future. But we will not have, in the middle period, we will have only about 10 years. And that's very little compared to this long period of 50 years or the long period of the future as well. But the middle period is only going to be about 10 years. So that's a very small period. But it's what we're living in right now. And so because it's what we're living in right now, it's of course much more important for us than the past or the future, because the future has not arrived yet. The past is gone. We are near in the present right now. And even though I think it's a short period of time, it's important because it's now. And also for you, that's what you should pay attention to, of course, at the conference is what are the things that we can do now. And the transition period, we have not yet arrived at that future where artificial intelligence can do everything. But yet we are not in the past where everything was handmade. So we are in the process of doing more and more things with AI. But we have to invent how it's done. And so that's a difficulty because we don't actually know what is the best way of doing things yet. We knew we have had 50 years of developing the best ways of doing things with the traditional methods, and we will have a long time in the future to perfect that as well. But the transition period is upheaval. It's change. And many people think that's unpleasant or difficult, and how is that going to be? But I actually think it's an opportunity, it's excitement, it's great, it's very interesting that we get to invent that new world that will then happen in 5 years and 10 years from now. We don't even know how long time it's going to take. But that is what's happening now. And so we have to figure out the ways of using AI better. And I think that is for the better because the past was so expensive. And it's a very common complaint for everybody who has worked in the user experience field that software is poorly designed, websites are poorly designed, usability is too low. All of those things are true because it has been too expensive to do it right. We know how to do it right. I mean, I can give you another lecture that says, okay, here are the 10 things you're supposed to do. And if you do all those 10 things, your usability will be very high and you will have a great product. Unfortunately, it's also going to probably double the time it takes you to create the product. And therefore, no company will actually spend that money and can afford it because the handmade is expensive. And so we have to get away from that. And that, to me, is that biggest opportunity. And so we have to gradually, one step at a time, move from that handmade past to the automated future, where the humans still have the judgment and have a lot of important jobs to do. But the mechanical, the lower level design things are done by the AI. That will take us time to get that to happen. And we'll have to invent each of the things. So I can say that right now, we know some things about AI already, and there are certainly things we know about AI. And one of the things you have probably heard already, but I'll just say it anyway, is that it is not that AI will take your job, but somebody who is better at using AI than you, they may take your job because we will be so much more efficient and high productivity with AI. So right now we can expect we can probably double our productivity with AI. 10 years from now, it will probably be much more than that. So if you do not use AI, you're like a dinosaur. Dinosaurs, they died out because they were not fit for evolution. And so it's going to be the same here. We have to evolve. We have to adapt AI. So right now we can use AI a lot for things like ideation, come up with a lot of alternatives, ideas, and then use the human judgment to choose the one we're going to do. We can also use AI for a lot of sort of simpler steps in usability research, like doing transcriptions, doing translations. If you're doing a prototype that you're going to do user testing with a prototype, you can very quickly get some graphics to put in place, placeholder graphics. You can get text, because text is super important for user interfaces and for usability and for user experience. So anytime you do user testing, you should never have these dummy text that says nothing. You should have real text in the prototype, and AI will spit out as much text as you want very, very quickly. So there are things like that we can do already that work very well. And then there are other things like doing a complete user interface, a complete website, where it's not quite there yet. But a lot of these things we can absolutely do already. Another thing that is happening, and this year is the year of the agents. So agent is when the AI, the computer, does things on behalf of the user. And that's called an agent. So an AI agent is something that will go out and possibly even do shopping for you. That's maybe a little bit later, but already now you have things like the research-oriented agents that can go out and read 50 different websites and come up with a conclusion of what are these things saying, what is the important things you need to know, and then present that to you in a report. It may take 10 minutes to make that report because it's doing a lot of so-called thinking or computation, but that is kind of something that's really happening now. And I think that's a very important change in our approach to user experience, because it actually means that some of the user interface design becomes less important, because the agent may be the one that's using the website, not the user. The user may be actually interacting with the agent, and the agent is interacting with the website, but the user is not directly interacting with the website, only with that intermediate agent, and the agent then talks to the website. So that changes a lot of our thinking. And that's, again, a process that will happen over the next several years. So these agents are right now fairly primitive. Only kind of high-end users will use them. The majority of people don't even know what they are yet, I'm sure. But I think that's going to be a very big future. If you experiment with agents, or that's another piece of advice I should actually give you, you should experiment with the things that are kind of cutting-edge artificial intelligence, because they will be real very fast. Next year, if not sooner. And so it's good to be ahead of the curve on these things. So experiment definitely with deep research and those type of products that can do advanced agents in AI. And next year, they will be much more common and have many more capabilities. And that means that we have to actually design our user experience, our features, our workflow, such that we can communicate with the users in that more indirect way of communicating through an agent. Now, this is not something that I can tell you today exactly how to do this, because it's just coming out now. But it's going to be a very interesting issue on how we can do, for example, user research. We'll have to actually study the users interacting with the agent then interacting with our website or our service design. And then we have to kind of make sure that the overall user experience is still good, even with that extra step in the middle. And so that's an extra complication and something that will be difficult for us to figure out, I have to say, but it's something that we absolutely can do. And so we still need user experience. I want to just emphasize this. I've already said this a few times. We still need the humans. Many people who are in the audience today, you will still have your job if you learn how to use AI well. You will absolutely be needed, because there are so many things that need to be designed above those levels that will be done by the agents or will be done by an AI designer. All the workflows issues. What is the computer even doing? I mean, why do we have computers? What are the features, the tasks it's going to do, the service design? Another thing that is already important, will become much more important in the future, is customer journey management. So in user interface design, we will typically design the screens. So the one thing the user is looking at right now, that's what we're designing in user interface design. But in customer journeys, people will be using many different channels to interact with the company. Some of those channels may be human. You may be going into a store and talk to a salesperson and look at things that are displayed in the store. Other things will be the website. Other things will be messages, text messages on the phone, voice messages. A lot of different possible channels can be in use. And we have to organize or coordinate these channels. This is sometimes called omni-channel or many-channel design. So omni-channel design is a very important thing. That's already true now. People do this now. And many companies do not do this well because they have different people designing each channel, and the organized synchronization is poorly done, and the handoff in the customer journey is poorly done. So customer journey management is absolutely a very, very strategic point that will be one of the big responsibilities in the future, as many of these individual touch points will be done by AI. So we still need to have all of those things done. Another reason we will have a need for human user experience people in the future, even if some of the user interface task job is being done by AI, is, I have this slogan, I say UX is people, user experience is people or humans. And there are two reasons for that. The first is the obvious one, that it's called user experience because we're designing for the users, and the users are people, they are humans. But the second reason is UX is people, is that who is doing user experience work? Well, people are, humans are. And we're doing that in teams, in organizations, in companies. We have to, the reason for all this work is to actually fulfill the company mission. The company has something it's trying to accomplish, and we're designing to make that happen. And we're designing that within that company. And so there are colleagues, there are people in other departments, in other disciplines, there are people at higher levels of management. There's a variety of different other humans that we have to deal with. And understanding how to deal with them has always been important, but it becomes more important in the future as some of these lower level tasks are done by artificial intelligence. Our job becomes more and more to make all these humans work together and make the total missions a success, which is an internal organizational issue in companies. So this is sometimes called soft skills, as opposed to the hard skills of designing a good-looking icon. But the soft skill of working with your colleagues, working with your bosses, understanding the business, understanding the company's mission, fulfilling the company's mission, making it clear to other people how good design actually fulfills or supports that mission, which a lot of other people don't understand. And that's one of the reasons that user experience has not been done so well in the past, is that we have been communicating or collaborating with people who do not quite understand, because it's a new area. I said it's 50 years old, but it's only 50 years old in a few places. Most companies have only started doing this fairly recently. So most managers and most higher level managements and executives and the big bosses do not have so much personal experience with user experience from when they were young. So we have a lot of that communication mission that we have to do. And that becomes more and more important as the hard skill thing is done by AI. So UX really is people, and that means the soft skills become more and more important. So I'd like to now show you a video, because I'd like to talk a little bit about the usability heuristics. And so I have a little video with a small 2 minutes, it's only 2 minutes, but to sort of introduce one of my 10 usability heuristics. So can we play the video now, please? Play the video now, please.
Jacob Nielsen's got 10 rules, you see, to make your website work easily. Number 6, we'll sing it out loud. Recognition beats the recall crowd. Don't make folks remember what's in store. Show lessons they can't ignore. My memory's short, it fades away. Give me some cues so I can play. Menus and icons clear and bright, make choosing options pure delight. No cryptic commands I have to know, just point and click and watch it go. Autocomplete, yeah, knows what you need, just type a little, let the system lead. No more guessing, no struggle at all, recognition's a key, you won't drop the ball. Amazon smart, they know the game. Bought together, it's not the same as searching blind with no guiding light. Recognition makes the shopping bright. Give hints and help right where they need it. Let no users call go unheeded. Keep the knowledge in the world not hid. Watch your interface spread ahead. So keep it clear, make it bright. Help your users do it right. No more struggle, no need to stall. Recognition beats recall.
Great. So, so the reason I want to show you this video, there's actually two reasons. And the first one is it's a demonstration of one of the interesting points about artificial intelligence, which is that it allows us to transform media types from one format to another. So, of course, I've been writing about these heuristics, but I've not been making songs about them. But I can tell the AI to make a song about the heuristic, and I can tell it, make an animation of a polar bear, and I can just have it make that for me. And that's one of the things I think is important for us to think about in the future, that the multimedia experience becomes much more interesting, multimodal, because all these different modalities, all these different media types can really be transformed among each other with artificial intelligence. One of the very pragmatic things we can do is we can present information at different levels of difficulty for users who have different reading skills. So that some people have very high reading skills, they're very literate, they're very highly educated, they're very smart, very nice, yeah, sure. So they can understand very difficult information. And one of the reasons we have a lot of usability problems is that the people who do these design projects tend to be like that. You don't become a programmer or a high-level manager in an important company unless you are highly educated, unless you are good at dealing with complicated information. And so when you see this information, you're saying, oh yeah, that's easy enough. And a lot of people are not as skilled at reading, they're not as highly educated, not as used to dealing with complicated information. Well, artificial intelligence can automatically transform information at different levels of difficulty and present it at a level that's suitable for that person. This is actually particularly important in the medical field in terms of healthcare, because patients, when they talk to the doctors or the physicians, who are highly educated people who read a lot of complicated medical literature, are not always good at explaining the diagnosis or explaining at what the patients are supposed to do. But artificial intelligence can actually transform these instructions to the patient to something that people can understand at whatever is their level of reading skill. So the transformation of information, that is one of the very, very important uses of AI. That's what I call advanced use of AI. Simple use of AI is I ask it a question and I get an answer, but advanced use is thinking about things like the transformation of to different media types or different levels of explanation and so forth. Now, the second reason I wanted to show you this little polar bear song is that it's an example of one of my usability heuristics that I wrote more than 30 years ago, and it's still true. And why is it still true? it is still true because, as the bear says, my memory is short and it fades away. And it's not just the bear that has a bad memory, it's actually humans that's more important. It's just a fact that humans have a hard time remembering a lot of information from one screen to the next screen if you go through a workflow. And that is why recognition is better than recall. So instead of having to recall or remember information, show it to them so I can recognize it. And so that has been one of my top 10 usability heuristics or advice for how to design for better user experience for more than 30 years. And it's still good advice because humans do not get any smarter. We still have bad memories. And 10 years from now, 50 years from now, it will still be true because people do not get any smarter. We will still have the same type of brains and same type of memory in the future as we do now or as we did 30 years ago. So sometimes people ask me, do you want to update these 10 heuristics because they are 30 years old to the modern world? And I say no, because the heuristics are about humans. I mean, they're about how to make computers and humans work together, but they're really about how to change the computer so that it works with the humans, because we cannot change the human. People are the same. People, and we have to design for people. That's one of my very, very basic principles, is we should not ask people to change. So sometimes when people discuss something, that something is too difficult, they say, well, we need to have more training, better courses, better manuals, better instructions. Well, all experience shows people do not want to read instructions. It's expensive to take training courses. And in any case, the human should not have to adapt and change to the computer. The computer should have to change and adapt to the people. And so that's why the heuristics talk about how to make user interfaces that work so that they are easy, high usability for humans. Those principles are the same now. They were the same 30 years ago. They will be the same 30 years from now as well. And so that's why it's very, very good return on investment for you the more you learn about usability principles, because the usability principles tend to remain very steady, very constant, because they relate to people, to humans, and the human brain is the same. Whereas a lot of the technology things change very, very rapidly, in particular with something like artificial intelligence. I'm not even going to say today, I recommend you use this product, because next week, that may be the wrong advice. There may be a new product come out that's better, because it moves very fast in artificial intelligence. But the principles about how to relate to people and humans, they remain the same. Now, one of the things that is changing with artificial intelligence is that I already mentioned it will increase productivity. And many studies show this already. So it makes people more efficient. So the same person can do more. That means that smaller teams can do the work that used to take a bigger team. That again means that we need to have less coordination overhead, because if you have a team of 10 people and they can do the work of 20 people, that means that we don't have nearly as many people have to talk to each other and get confused. We don't have to have as many levels of management to make sure they all do the right thing and they're coordinated. So I call this pancaking. So it's like this flat cake. Instead of a big cake, it's a flat cake. So fewer levels of management, more efficient teams, smaller teams. And this, I think, is very important for user experience, because it means that a few highly, highly efficient user experience people can create more than a big confused team in the past. And we've always had too few resources, too little budget, in user experience. But in the future, that will become much better because the smaller team can create more. I do want to raise one concern of mine, one thing I worry about, and that is that experience so far with artificial intelligence shows that it is particularly good at making programmers or developers more efficient. So that's the number one example of where AI works extremely well today, is for helping programmers and developers. And of course, this is great because it's wonderful if programmers can do more work. That means we can make more software. That means that there'll be more work for user experience people at making that software better. So I like that developers get more efficient. The one thing that is my worry is that there's already a little bit of a mismatch in software development between the technology side and the human side, or our side, the user experience, the design side. And if the developers get much, much better, and we only get a little better, that may actually mean that they get to dominate even more than they already did. So that's just really a worry of mine. And I think that the only thing we can do is we have to recognize we are working with these super developers, super geeks that are going to be much better than they were in the past. And that means that we have to also become much better than we were in the past. And then the two can absolutely work together. And that's the only thing we ever get anything done, is that we have to collaborate with people with different disciplines. But we cannot be left behind. And I do think that so far, artificial intelligence has been a big revolution, has done a lot of great things, but it has been too dominated by the technology, too little impact by design. And it's partly because it came out of research and science and engineering. That's who invented it. Much credit to those geniuses who invented it, but they were not usability people. They didn't understand the human angle. And it's also our fault. It's also the design community's fault for having been asleep, having not engaged enough in making AI products more suitable for humans. So I feel like it is guaranteed that is the future, that we will have so much more AI, but only actually if it becomes easier to use, that it satisfies human needs better, it functions better in organizations. And all of these issues are human factors problems, usability issues, our concerns that we need to design better. So that's really my challenge to all of you in the audience as well, is to really embrace AI, because if you don't, the engineers will just roll all over us because they will be so much more efficient than we are. So that's the number one. But the number two is we have to do it. We have to make AI so much better, because if we don't, it will not meet its potential, and it has great potential, but only if we remember humans, if we remember the human factors, if we remember usability and user experience. And who can do that? Well, it's only us who can do it, because we have that expertise, and it is a special expertise to do it. So that's my challenge to you. Learn AI, use AI, and improve AI most of all. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Jacob. That's fantastic. Oh my gosh. So, I got a lot of, memo myself, but from now on, we want to have a question for you. それではですね、もうめちゃめちゃいろんな刺激的なお話ありましたけども、ここからですね、会場から質問を受けたいと思います。これは直接聞きたいって方、挙手いただけますでしょうか。Great. ならマイクお願いできましょうか。So Jacob, now the one lady, raise her hand. Then she will have a question, so I will translate to you. Wait.
Mr. Nielsen, thank you so much for your informative lecture, and it's been a great honor to be able to hear your speech. And I've got one question regarding the efficiency of the designers. And I think in the presentation you mentioned that we will have like smaller teams. A smaller team can create more than maybe it has always been, or like it is right now. And I kind of worry that it means that we don't need. I mean that the company needs less UX designers. So I really wanted to know that how can we become more efficient? Does it really mean that utilizing AI technologies, or do you have any other things in mind that equals to being more efficient?
Right. No, that is a very good question. And I think if you think about it in a very narrow or specific way, then you can say that to design the exact same thing will only need maybe half the people in the future because they will be much more efficient with artificial intelligence help. But this does not mean that the other half of people we don't need anymore, because we will do twice as many things. Actually, I think we'll do many more than twice as much design work in the future. Because I mentioned before that the number one area where AI helps is actually for software developers. They can crank out a lot more software. And I feel like in my entire career, I've always heard one message about programmers and software developers, which is that there were too few of them. The universities would not educate enough people who knew how to build good software and so on. This has for more than 40 years, same newspaper headline every year. This is no longer true because now these people can create so much more software, and software will never become more cheap, and that means it'll be used for more things. So there'll be a lot more software products. When I say software, it could be mobile apps, it could be websites, it could be completely new things we don't know about today. But there will be more, is my point, because it gets cheaper, therefore there will be more. And that also means there will be more design needed. And in fact, I actually think that, let's say we have twice as much software, I don't think that only means twice as much design, because I also think that the quality is not yet where it should be to really satisfy human needs. So I would say we need at least twice as much, maybe even 5 times as much UX work to really make the quality level where it really should be. So let's say that we say 2 times as much software and 5 times as much work to make it high quality. Multiply those two together, and that means we need to have 10 times as much UX work done in, let's say, 10 years from now. And so I think that there will be need for more UX people, even if each individual person can do 2 or 3 times as much. Maybe in 10 years they can do 4 or 5 times as much. But there will still be a need for at least twice as many people as we have today. I think actually more than that in reality. But so anyway, my answer to the question is that by being more efficient and by our colleagues, our engineering colleagues being even more efficient, there will be a need for more. And there will also be a demand for higher quality of the user experience, because, I mean, we get the world that becomes more and more knowledge oriented. And that means it becomes less and less acceptable for people to struggle with things that are too difficult. So I think that there'll be much more demand for quality software and for quality design and for the people who can make that happen. And so more efficiency, I do not worry at all that being higher productivity means need for fewer staff. I think that we will all have a lot of work to do in the future also.
Okay, thank you. I could see the bright future, and I think I want to keep educating myself. Thank you.
もしもよければ質問するときこちらに来ていただければよかったですね。ありがとうございます。Thank you so much. So I will have another question. もう何名か。はい、ぜひでは後ろの方いらっしゃいますね。Another lady raise her hand. Wait a minute now. あれ後ろの方出てあげた方や。Yes. すいません、マイクこちらです。マイク。あ、こちらでごめんなさいね。右の後ろの方、入り口の近く。Sorry, keep you waiting.
Thank you for your speech. And I have one question. If we think about like expanding our business to global from Japan, I feel like we have to care about the culture difference between like Japan and the global. And then even like under the you said the principle of the recognition with more than recall. And then I think like when you think about like expand business to global, what do you think we have to care more, and what like in detail what we can do as the approach to make it successful?
Good. Oh, that's another great question. So I think there are 3 different things to consider. And the first are all these usability principles I mentioned, like recognition better than recall. And that's really the same, because humans are mostly the same in terms of like the actual biology is mostly the same. And so the brain is the same. I mean, people do not have much better memories anyway in any one country than another country. So that will be the same. So what's easy in one place is also easy in another place. But then you get the two other issues that are important. And one is, of course, language. Language is probably the easiest one to deal with because we can have translators and we can have AI help with the translation as well. So for example, if we want to do user testing, in the past that was very expensive to do user testing in many countries, but now with AI help, that can become much cheaper and therefore you should do it. And then the third question is, as you mentioned, there are absolutely cultural differences and differences in the way business is done and what people like and so forth. And that is impossible to give one guideline for that because it's really different everywhere. The only guideline is to kind of like know that it's true and to study it. And this is when I go back to this question of doing user research. So if you just do a pure translation of the words, you're not translating the culture, you're just translating the words. And so that's the first step. It has to be done, but it's not the full step. It's not enough. And so you have to also then do the user research with the customers or the users in each of those countries. And the only thing that's lucky or good is that this will now be much cheaper to do. We also have things with the internet, we can do much more remote research, like even like right now, I'm speaking in Silicon Valley to you in Tokyo, and it works fine. And similarly, we could do user research and we could have the translation done and everything could actually work without everybody having to travel everywhere, and it would be very, very expensive like it used to be. So it will be cheaper, but it will be more necessary to do that international user research. And that's my only really advice, because you can be aware that there are cultural differences, but you cannot actually know what they are unless you actually do the research.
Thank you. User research is the key essence things. I got it. Thank you.
Great. それではですね、まだまだ質問を受けたいんですけども、お時間になりましたので、ここら辺で終了とさせていただきたいと思います。So Jacob, thank you so much. So please give us one more message to the Japanese audience. All right?
Yes. Well, I would say that Japan is very famous all over the world. Many things, I'm sure, but for one thing I really know, which is quality and really attention to detail and making wonderful, wonderful design. I think this has, of course, been true for 1,000 years and has always been important, but I think it's more important. It will be more important now because we will do the beauty of the artificial intelligence of engineers and developers becoming so much more productive is that we can make things happen. This is great, but the quality, the refinement, the polish, the beauty of it, that remains. And I feel like this is where you people in the audience, you have a special skill, but for that reason, also a special duty to humanity of retaining that Japanese tradition of quality and really caring immensely about the details, because details are so important for user experience. You just mess up one small thing and the entire thing becomes unpleasant. So that would be my message to you is like retain that cultural value because it will be much more important in the future.
Jacob, thank you so much. 皆さんぜひ拍手を送っていただけますでしょうか。Can you hear,
Yes, can hear you. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございました。Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
はい。Thank you so much.